Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Welcome to another episode of Cooking in Quarantine. This week, this episode, we are going to be making apple crumble and custard from scratch. So it's a nice, easy recipe. Again, one that you can do all the family, and some little hacks in there how to make custard at home. Hope you enjoy. Ingredients that we're using this week are 3 or 4 Bramley apples, 100 grams of granulated sugar, but that's split into 2 lots of 50. We've got 150 grams of plain flour, and this recipe actually works really well with gluten-free flour as well. And we've got 75 grams of softened butter. That's for your crumble and the apple crumble. Now for the custard, what you need is milk, full fat milk, but if you can get hold of extra creamy milk like this, it'd be perfect. Corn flour, again you're looking at the same amount as your flour, and 1 vanilla pod for flavouring. We're going to start off by making the crumble. Okay, so you take your flour, sugar, so you add your sugar in as you would. If you remember back to the shortbread recipe, basically it's the same principle, just slightly different amounts of each ingredient, but that's all we're doing. We're just making the breadcrumbs using the rubbing technique. Again, soft butter makes it easier. If you want to make this a vegan version, instead of soft butter you can use vegan butter, or you can use margarine, but I'd try and use the butter rather than the margarine. The margarine's a bit too soft. So yeah, break your butter up, put it in to little chunks, and then once it's in, start rubbing and mixing the mixture. So like I say, just mix it all in together, cover the butter with everything, and again you're going to have to use both hands and just rub it in gently, or as hard as you want. It's up to you, whatever helps you relax. So you can start off vigorously, and then once it starts forming, you can go back to rubbing it through your fingers if you wish. As you can see from when you rub all this in, it's harder to tell on camera, but when you're actually physically doing it, you'll see the colour of the flour change. It goes from the white colour that you're used to, with the butter all mixed in, it actually turns to a yellow breadcrumby colour. So there you can see that's ready now for the crumble topping. So what we do is we put that to one side, and now next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the apple sauce. But before you start the apple sauce, what I'm going to say is you've got to make sure that all the big chunks of butter are all rubbed into your flour and sugar mix, so everything's gone. Okay, so that's ready. Now we just put that to one side, and next thing we do is we're on to the apple sauce. Right, okay, so the apples have been peeled, and what we're doing is we're chopping them into small pieces. Now some of you are probably better at cutting stuff than I am, so I'm taking it nice and easy because people are always saying we want to see how you do it. Right, okay, so I'm just chopping it into pieces like that. Watch this proper chef technique. So chop it into cubes, and then what I'm doing is putting it into a bowl of water. The reason why I put them in the water is because when you peel an apple or you cut an apple, you know it starts to go brown straight away. That's because it's oxidizing, and that's what causes it to go brown, the chemical reaction. So to stop it from going brown straight away, I put them in a bowl of water, as you can see, just to stop them from going brown faster. Once the apples have been chopped, the next stage is drain the water from the bowl, and then put the apples in your pot. So you need quite a big pot, as you can see. So put your apples in there, all the apples. Oh, it's quite a lot there. Add your sugar as well, the other 50 grams of sugar. Put that in there. And one thing you're going to need is you're going to need a touch of water so that it doesn't burn at the bottom. So just like a couple of tablespoons, just a little bit on the bottom of the pan. Now you can always add more water if you think it's needed later on. What you're basically doing is baking a very basic type of jam or the apple filling. So once it's in the pot, you turn the heat on and you just constantly stir until it becomes mushy and apple pie filling like, and you'll be able to tell just by looking at it. Right, you can see the apples are being cooked. Now you want them to basically stew. What you could do to make life easy, if you don't like chunky apples, if you want it a bit of a smoother sauce, is get some of the apples and you can put them in a blender, so it makes it a bit more liquidy, less chunky, more blended. Right, so you stir it in, stir it in, stir it in. You'll be able to see the colour of the water that you've put in is starting to change. It's starting to look like apple sauce. So yeah, you're going to leave it to stew in there. So you just keep stirring it every now and again. You can also add cinnamon at this point if you want. I haven't added cinnamon, but a lot of people like apple and cinnamon together. I usually do, but I've left it out of this recipe today. But yeah, normally you can add, if you want, cinnamon in there. You can see the apples are starting to cook as well. Now they're going brown, not because of the oxidization, but that's because they're starting to cook now as well. The ones at the bottom are coming to the top, you can see. If you see some are quite big, you want to break it down, just you can start breaking them down because they're softening. While the apples are cooking, at this point, I turn on the oven 180 degrees to let it preheat. As you can see, the apples are now reducing a lot, and when you're cooking, you won't be able to smell it now, but you'll be able to get the beautiful aroma of the apples cooking through the apple sauce. So we've been going for about 5 minutes. This whole process should take roughly about 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Again, if you want it cooked through a bit more, it depends on how many apples you put in, because some people might put 3 apples in, some people might put in 4, some people might put in 5. Also, these are Bramley apples. Some people might not be able to get hold of Bramley apples. You can use other apples as well. The reason I've used Bramley is because they've got a stronger flavour, which makes better for when you're cooking. With the other apples, they lose some of the flavour during the cooking process. So as you can see, it's coming together now, and you can see it's thickening a bit. Look, can you see the sauce? Rather than it being water, it's thickening away now, and this is what you want. So yeah, keep doing this for another 5 minutes. As you can see now, it has become a lot more mushy, and it is like the apple sauce that you get from the shops, or you get in your apple pies. Look at that, beautiful. I could get a spoon and eat it all right now, but we're not going to do that. We're going to put it in our tray and then add the crumble mix and put it in the oven. So at this point, as you can see, the apple sauce is made. Transfer it to your tray. So get it all in there. It's still really, really hot. You can let it cool for a bit if you want, but I'm putting it straight in and letting it cool in the tray because surface area ratio, all that sort of stuff, if you remember from school. You youngsters still should remember it because you only did it like a few years ago. Some of you are doing it now, but it'll cool quicker if it's spread out. So get it all in your pan and spread it out in your tray. Evenly spread it out, and it'll cool down quicker this way. So as you can see, it's spreading out. Still some chunks. Most of the apple, you can see, has become the apple sauce type with the cooking. And I wish you could actually smell this. You'll be smelling it when you're making it, but right now I love the smell of cooked apples. Now before I put the crumble mix on top, I'm going to let it cool for a few minutes, because as you can see, all the steam coming off. Right now, as you can see, it's been in the pan for a bit. It's still quite warm, so be careful, don't burn your hands. I'm going to add the crumble mix. Now it's been sat for ages because we did it first. What you could do, if it's easier for you, is make the apple sauce first and then the crumble mix, and then put it straight on top. So I'm just giving it a quick rub through again, getting it all breadcrumby, and then you just sprinkle it over the top. Make sure you evenly put it over the top again. Make sure it's covered. And at first it might look like you've not got enough crumble mix with the ingredients that we've used, but as you can see, it's covering it all. Just don't let it be big massive clumps. Break your clumps up, so rub it as you're sprinkling it on. As you can see, I'm doing with my fingers, so that breaks up the big clumps, the giant big pieces. Try not to be tempted to just pour all the crumble mix into the middle of your pan and spread it out, because that's just going to mix in with the applesauce, and then you've not really got a crumble, you've got something else. I don't know, maybe you can give it a name and market it yourself if it's not already out there. That's entirely up to you, but like I say, if you sprinkle it on like this evenly, you get crumble spread right in the edges as well. What will happen while cooking, because there's still a little bit of water left in the apple sauce mixture, it'll start to bubble through, but that's okay. Now when you're cooking this and you come back and check, we're putting it in the oven for half an hour. It might look like it's not cooked through, but after half an hour it definitely has cooked through. Just make sure you're checking it regularly so that it's not burning. So this is now ready to go in the oven. Like I say, it's 180 degrees, and I'm putting it on the top shelf in the middle as usual, which is the hottest part of the oven. What's left now is to make the custard. You can make it right now and then leave it for when the crumble's ready. Like I said, that's going to take 30 minutes. Or like me, I'm not going to do the custard yet. I'm going to wait for the crumble to cook through, and while it's cooling, I'm going to make the custard then, because I prefer hot custard. Some people like cold custard, so it's entirely up to you how you do this. So while I'm waiting for the apple crumble to bake, and before I start making my custard, it's time to go away and do other things. So now we're ready to start making the custard. For this, we're going to use the rest of the ingredients. We've got the creamy milk, we've got the vanilla pod, we've got the corn flour, and this is additional, entirely up to you. Because the apple crumble is going to be quite tangy, because Bramley apples have got a beautiful tangy apple flavour, we're going to balance it out with a bit of sugar in the custard. Now some people don't eat a lot of sugar, some people like a lot of sugar, so I'm going to leave it entirely up to you. I'm going to put 4 tablespoons of sugar in my mixture, but again, it's entirely up to you. So when we start, we take the milk and we put it into a pan. Right, so I'm pouring all this milk in. As you can see, it's very, very creamy milk. So there's a lot of cream in there, it's thick. I've put the whole litre in. And what we'll do is we're going to put that on to boil in a minute. What we do next is we're going to cut the vanilla pod. Right, so cut your vanilla pod now. Cut it all the way down, because you need to get inside, get into the heart of the vanilla pod. Open it up and scoop out everything that's inside. You need a really sharp knife for this bit, because you need to score it, the top, and open it up. My sharp knife, unfortunately, is not sharp enough. So like I say, so I'm having to work at this to get them out. As you can see, it's opening up. You can see there all the goodness on the inside. And what you do, there it's on my fingers, but with your knife then, is just scrape all that off from the inside. Can you see all the little vanilla beans in there? Scrape that all out and start adding it to your milk. So the milk and the vanilla is on to boil. Now I add the sugar. So like I say, I'm going to add 4 heaped tablespoons. Now for some people that might seem a lot and you're going to think, oh wow, so much sugar, but I like it sweet, so that's why I'm adding that much sugar. So add it to your milk, give it a quick stir, and leave your milk to boil. So it's come to the boil once, that has the milk with the vanilla. So what you do then is turn the heat down, let it simmer for another 2-3 minutes, and let all the flavour of the vanilla get soaked up by the milk. Okay, so the milk's boiled, and the vanilla milk, again very aromatic if you can smell it. What we're going to do now is I'm going to take the corn flour and I'm going to put it in a bowl. So you get all the corn flour in. Okay, little technique that I was taught all those years ago. They just make a little well in the middle. And what we're going to do, you don't really have to make a well, that's just a little bit of kind of that I'm doing. Right, we're going to pour a little bit of the milk mixture in. Only a little bit, and we're going to whisk the mixture so it becomes like a paste. You can see it's quite thick, yeah, the corn flour, and it becomes a thick paste straight away. So you're going to have to work this. Get the rest of the milk all in with your corn flour and get it all mixed in. If you need to add a bit more milk, do that. And what you're going to do is, like I said, is you're going to make this into a bit of a paste. Try and get rid of all the lumps. Okay, so now you just work it. Okay, so now you can see the little bit that was on the whisk has come off, and you stir it, stir it, stir it so there's no lumps. And you'll be able to tell when the lumps have all gone. Now I can feel it, there is no lumps in there. So once you've mixed the corn flour and the milk mixture together in the bowl a little bit, what you're going to do is you're going to add that back to the main milk mixture. So you put it all back in there and you put that back on to boil, and you need to keep stirring it constantly because you're going to make it thicken now into the custard as we're familiar with. At this point, it's good practice to actually turn your crumble in the oven. It's been going about 15 minutes. If you've made the custard straight as after putting it into the oven and not waited for it to cook first. But halfway through, you need to turn your crumble the other way in the oven. Right, as you put this back onto the boil, keep stirring it, stirring it, stirring it, because it's going to start to thicken really, really fast. It's thick. Look at that, that's custard. I'm turning the gas off. Keep whisking it, you want to get rid of all the lumps. So the crumble's ready, the custard's ready. Now we're just going to plate it up. As you can see, the crumble, the apple with the custard on top, beautiful. Hope you enjoy. Hope you've really enjoyed this recipe this time. Keep an eye out, there's going to be more recipes in the next few weeks coming out. Please enjoy, please share, like, all the other things that you do, retweet, all that sort of stuff. Seek to inspire the bakery. Enjoy. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.